Robert's point is it's so destructive, even though it gave the bankers incredible power, what are they going to spend the money on when everything's like Zimbabwe? If we have a Great Depression like we had in the 20s and 30s, it will be road warrior. And here's the deal. The economic atmosphere, the economic climate we're in is much worse than leading up to 29. Okay, and I'm not trying to scare you. We're going to do some overdrive a little bit in the next hour because while he's here, I want to spend as much time with him as possible. And also, while we're at it live on air, let's look at the schedule. When can we get Wayne back in here for a full hour tomorrow? When I heard that Wayne Madsen was going to be leaving the United States because of the a foreign embassy, a major media outlet, and a confirmation through the source in the U.S. Embassy that the White House wants him dead. And Wayne, of course, formerly with the NSA, syndicated columnist, very well respected, written some of the biggest publications in the country. When he brings something out like that, we certainly respect it. He, of course, is one of the guys meeting with the D.C. madam and helped get her on the show right before she was suicided, Arkansided. And so Wayne is here with us today and tomorrow before he gets ready to leave the United States to work on his magnum opus exposing the CIA ties of Barack Obama. Wayne Madsen Report.com. Wayne, great to have you here with us today.
Good to be with you here in Austin, Alex.
We're honored to have you. We're going to break here in a moment, and I want to get into your research on the CIA and birth certificate issues that are really heating up. But Dr. Paul Craig Roberts was talking about the fact that the dollar is doomed and that the elites running things are crazy. You've lived in D.C. for decades. I mean, is there a method to their madness, or has it gone to just pure hubris?
I think we haven't seen anything like this before in D.C. because even the word coming out of the Treasury Department, now I'm not talking about the senior officials, but those people that work in the bowels of the place is not encouraging. And you hear the same thing in Congress. And the news out that the U.S. economy will be eclipsed by China in 2016. I think it's clearly, the writing is on the wall what's going to happen to us and our economy. It's happening right now. Of course, to listen to Obama things.
We've had two Fed heads, Kansas City and Dallas, say we are completely screwed.
Well, right. And this is...
And they've said the Fed is doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never seen a rebellion in the Fed like that.
Right, right. So, you know, even they're eating their own dead here now.
Well, they wouldn't do that unless they knew it was dire.
Right. And the word has been coming out of Treasury for a couple of years now about where this economy is heading and where the dollar is heading.
I mean, is it like the Russians before their collapse where they're just delusional?
Well, when you see this push now, and remember what happened to Russia after the fall of the Soviet Union, they privatized all those state-owned industries, and now we see this push to do this in the various states.
Let's talk about the method of the madness, because I agree with your analysis. I mean, it is wild what they're doing, but they've planned this, just like we're a third world country. Wayne, stay there. Break down what they did in the Soviet Union when it collapsed, what they're going to do here. And by the way, if you're in the middle class, that means you make more than $50,000 a year, they're going to rob you. Wayne Madsen. There's too much confusion, my friend. But, you know, for those that research this information, there's really not confusion. There's just befuddled amazement at what the system is doing and how crazy they are. Now, you were getting into the parallel between the collapse of the Soviet system and the robber barons, the oligarchs coming in, and what's being set up and planned here. The solution by the Republicans is a form of austerity that doesn't fix the Federal Reserve root of it. It just simply privatizes the system. Break that down.
Well, if you look across the country, what's happening, we see further privatization of turnpikes, for example, going to private companies to collect tolls. Everyone should always be worried when a cash-intensive operation is privatized. It's a recipe for money laundering on a grand scale.
Well, they beef the prices. They lobby to not fix the other roads. They take over existing roads.
Right. The roads, we see now with privatization possibly of public lands, state-owned forests, state-owned parks. It goes on and on.
The old-timers said that in the mid-'90s was going to happen for collateral and the debt. Now they admit, just like we're a third world country, that's happening.
So what's going to happen next? Are we going to see corporate sponsorship like all these sports arenas of, federal monuments sponsored by various oil companies and banks and what have you? That may be around the corner.
Well, it's like the 600-plus Greek islands. One big broker they owed $3 billion to through fraud. He said, I'll just take that famous island, and they transferred it to him directly.
Right. Well, maybe they'll grab Hawaii or something here soon. And just put it up on the auction block. But I think this just goes to show that the people who are benefiting from this. I should have also mentioned what's happening to public education. You got the Washington Post. 70% of their business is from a private education firm that they own, Kaplan Business. Now we see moves to try to privatize public education. The camels with the nose under the tent is private, charter schools, magnet schools. It's really just another word. Set of words for privatization. And
which are really corporate schools. Those aren't private schools now. They're Bill and Melinda Gates schools, which is what Tarpley and others said Obama's specialty was in Chicago, is actually union busting, but not to get rid of the corrupt unions, to transfer it to the corporations.
And Rahm Emanuel is brought in as the Chicago head of the school board, one of these people who favors that. So we're going to see that continue in Chicago, in Washington, D.C. Arnie Duncan, the Secretary of Education, one of Obama's basketball buddies, is strong for this. And again, I say the Washington Post can't even cover this adequately or properly because they own a private education firm.
That's right. We're going to break here in a few minutes, but let's get started now. You've got some big news dealing on them trying to rewrite the history of Obama's family and all these intelligence agency connections, because your research just isn't into the birth certificate, a lot of it now being duplicated and expanded on by Jerome Corsi, but also into his CIA connections.
Well, especially his passport records and what he was doing when he was supposedly at Columbia and Occidental and potentially at Harvard Law. Right now we've got an article that came out in the New York Times Magazine written by Janie Scott, who's got a book coming out about Obama's mother. They're changing the facts. She even had an interview with Obama in the Oval Office, but we're being told things that just did not occur. They are changing the facts. They're changing Wikipedia as we speak.
New York Magazine is basically a Cass Sunstein organ more and more.
Oh, I think so. This is New York Times, but what we have is Lolo Soetoro, the stepfather's history being revised. We have Stanley Ann Dunham's history being revised. We have the history of Indonesia prior to and after the 1965 coup against President Sukarno also being revised. This is happening in plain sight, and we're supposed to believe that this New York Times reporter got the interview with Obama in the Oval Office, spoke to all these people who knew the family without any independent corroboration of that. So I think this is a huge, they're obviously preparing for this to be raised in the election campaign, and this is sort of like a preemptive move on their part.
And that's more evidence of the guilt. If it had no proof behind it, they would have released the original certificate, not the receipt. They would have dispelled all this early on. But all of his records are kept very, very secret.
Especially the area that there seems to be a lot of reluctance to go after. And remember, the passport file was being rifled through in January of 2008, right in the primary season. We had John Brennan's company, the Analysis Corporation. He's now Obama's Deputy National Security Advisor. They were the ones committing the act of rifling through the passport file. I think they were trying to get remove information. We know that Stanley Ann Dunham's passport file prior to '68 was inadvertently destroyed, we're told. So I think what we have here...
Stay there. Tell us what we have on the other side. Let's go into it in detail. Well, amazing to have Wayne Madsen of WayneMadsenReport.com in studio with us. We're going to be going at least 20 minutes of overdrive into the next hour. We're going to clear the phone system out and open the phones up specifically if you have a question or a comment for Wayne Madsen coming up at the start of the next segment into the next hour. The toll-free number to join us is 800-259-9231. 800-259-9231. Okay, Wayne, we got Jerome Corsi being put on house arrest when he tried to go over to Kenya a few years ago. You've got the records now. He's reported in Indonesia, Kenya, Hawaii. They're all destroyed. They're all missing. Governor Abercrombie said 4 months ago when he was governor-elect, oh, I'm going to get into those records. He went and said, okay, the original birth certificate isn't there. But it's not just that. It's his whole background. You were getting into them trying to basically rewrite history right now. They are really, really scared of this. Sure, Obama's a teleprompter reading puppet, but if he gets politically damaged, that will damage everything he's done.
Well, I think it's interesting what we know. Some of the tidbits that came out in this article in New York Times Magazine that we did not know before. We found out that when Obama was a young boy living in Jakarta, he said he wanted to be the future Prime Minister of Indonesia. He also said he wanted to be President of the United States at some point in time. But I would imagine you could not be the Prime Minister of Indonesia unless you were somehow, you knew that you were an Indonesian citizen.
Well, he changed his name to Barry Soetoro.
Barry Hussein Soetoro. We're also now told that Lolo Soetoro, according to this article in the New York Times, that Lolo Soetoro worked not as a government relations person for Mobil Oil, which we were told he did as sort of like payback for the work he did to help install Suharto with the CIA coup. Now we're told he worked for Unical, Union Oil of California. So that's changed. We've got this report from somebody who was in Indonesia at the same time. Stanley Ann Dunham, the mother, was there saying, oh, in the late 60s and the early 70s, Indonesia was like, they called it the Indonesian Prague Spring. It was a honeymoon. There was freedom of the press, and student groups had a lot. Where are they getting this stuff from? Suharto was a brutal dictator. He was a brutal dictator up until he left office, basically. He was responsible for the brutal invasion and occupation of East Timor in 1975.
Mass murders, mass executions.
So this is all being rewritten to make it look like the time that Stanley Ann Dunham was in Indonesia, there was this Prague Spring, and she was this headbanded hippie running around throwing flowers at everybody, when in fact she was pinpointing people for the Indonesian army to go out and massacre who were suspected of being communist or anti-regime. That's what she was.
She was posing as a leftist.
Absolutely, absolutely, and
that's why you're getting the threats through the State Department and a foreign embassy and a major publication, because they're concerned about there's smoke, then there's fire with the birth certificate, but it's really this intelligence background they're worried about.
Absolutely, I think this is the thing that can sink them. I think this can open up the door. If Obama traveled to Pakistan in 1981 on an Indonesian passport, if he had an Indonesian passport, he had already committed himself to fealty to another sovereign. He cannot be the president of the United States. I know there's people with dual passports, but let's look at the fact that he supposedly goes to Occidental on a foreign student scholarship program that was only available to foreign students. So we see if this,
when you give up your citizenship, because a lot of countries don't let you have dual. Indonesia, you have to give it up. He gave it up.
He would have had to give it up, right? Indonesia does not permit dual citizenship, and so we have an issue here. And you know,
by the way, I hope folks know. I mean, you're a serious journalist who's never said you've been death threatened before. You've been told. I mean, what you're doing is dangerous right now. Just like when I had the D.C. madam on the show a few months before they killed her, and we talked to her landlord at the condo or the manager. She said they're following me. I got to get these papers to my mom's. He sent me copies of her lease. It was not her handwriting. She said on air, no, I'll never kill myself. I mean, they killed her. I hope people know you're risking your life with what you're doing right now.
Well, this is an important story, and I think the White House is somewhat comfortable with the birth certificate story, because they know that there's all these dead ends there. But I think that it's the passports, it's Obama's past in Indonesia, and what he did when he's ostensibly at Columbia, Occidental, and Harvard, that really, and also when he was supposedly a community organizer. He wasn't. He was obviously informing on some of the black groups in Chicago at the time, the El Rukin Gang, the Black Panther Party, the Nation of Islam. He was plopped in there. Those people in South Chicago did not trust. I've spoken to them. They did not trust Obama. He was just a little too cool for them.
That's right. You spent a lot of time in Chicago.
Absolutely, and and I've had discussions with people who work with the Nation of Islam, worked for the Black Panther Party, knew the guy that ran the El Rukin gang. And look, the El Rukins at the time, when he plopped in there in '86 from that CIA job in Manhattan, this was at the height of you look at the Chicago Tribune. El Rukin gang thought to be doing getting a deal with Gaddafi to get shoulder-launched missiles to shoot down planes at O'Hare. Now we see Obama's attacking Libya. Is this score settling?